The Great Money Binge, Spending Our Way to Socialism, by George Melloan. Narrated by Johnny Heller. Copyright 2009 by George Melloan. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Threshold Editions, a division of Simon & Schuster Incorporated, and was produced in the year 2009 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Introduction by Amity Schlaze. Can we do it again? That's the question many of us are asking about the Reagan Revolution of the 1980s. Not right this minute seems to be the answer. As the Great Money Binge, Spending Our Way to Socialism, is published, a ghastly unity of official opinion holds that the world is entering the post-capitalist era. We can basically say goodbye to the philosophy espoused by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, summed up President Clinton's Labor Secretary Robert Reich in a newspaper recently. But the market's moment will come again. While the world waits, it will want to prepare. The best way to do that is to sit down with this book and make the acquaintance of its author, George Melloan. Melloan happens to be the one who did do it the last time, along with several others. Mr. Melloan, his boss, Robert Bartley, and several others at the Wall Street Journal led the charge that broke down the opposition and ended the last great binge, all without the internet or even many fax machines, from 22 Cortlandt Street in downtown New York. To read this book, which includes the story of that great campaign, is in itself heartening, since it reminds us that the current economic fog is not unprecedented. In August 1971, after a retreat at Camp David, President Richard Nixon closed the gold window and imposed wage and price controls to camouflage what he'd done. With this action, Nixon doomed the next decade to economic mediocrity and postponed the computer revolution. In 1968, as the Journal would later grumble, more than 30 high-tech companies were founded in the United States. In 1976, none were. That Republican leadership was in part responsible for this failure was downer enough, given that the GOP is supposed to be the party of economic growth. Even worse, however, at least from the point of market's idealists, was that some of the greatest free market minds were sanctioning Nixon's abuses. Milton Friedman himself, for example, attended the presidential retreat when Nixon prepared the inglorious package. So did George Shultz and Paul McCracken, as well as that ironist of economists, Herbert Stein. The Nixon package implemented the policies of John Maynard Keynes, focusing on demand. Everything was about the shopper and his short-term habits. Yet the economists all went along, in part because they were overwhelmed by a familiar combo, a sense of crisis and a proximity to political power. As Stein later wrote of the Camp David setting,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?